Hello everyone, this is Delay again. This course is brought to you by Techno Hardware. Welcome to the second session of the beginner-friendly C course. The first lesson was very plain and also very simple. We covered the history of C and descendants of C, the levels of programming languages, and where does C belong on this wide scale. These are not that about deal breakers when you learn programming, but it's always nice to know the background of the things that you're acquainting with. If we come down to the parts that actually matter the most, we have learn libraries and what are meant to do. Okay, let's open our compiler. We have downloaded Dev C++ in early on. Okay, we have only covered two different libraries, so if you have missed the first class, it's totally okay. We can review it a little bit, but if you want to have a little bit of a more detailed version of this review, you're most welcome to watch the first lesson. Okay, so let's get started. So these are the two libraries that we have learned. So you can recognize these two .h letters at the end of both of these libraries. It's a tradition in the C, and you will encounter them frequently. Okay, I said that this studio.h library will be more frequently used since it contains the most basic of the two functions, such as printing and gathering data interactively from the user. But in order to decode the function, we need to write down a specific function to let the compiler know that this is the one that matters to us. And what have we called it in the previous lesson? The main function. After placing the necessary libraries, or one library, and in that case this isn't not necessary. I mean, we can leave it on, it won't hurt us, but it's not needed, so I'm just gonna delete it. We write down, after placing the libraries, we write down like this. We write int main function, and then parentheses, and then the brackets. In between brackets, we write down the codes that we want the program run for us. I have shown you your very first command, which is, yes, you know it, it's Printf Function. What does the printf do? It makes the program write things. Easy enough. Okay, let's do it. One more numbers and then we will continue with a brand new code. Let's write down hello world. And I said the C program can recognize the difference between a upper and a lowercase. So let's compile and run to see if it works. Okay, we have as you can see, I have both received my upper and lowercase letters, capital H and regular H. Okay, in order for this function to function, we need to get familiar with the concept of syntax. What is a syntax? The proper way of writing your codes. And almost after every function we put a semicolon. Of course there are exceptions to this, but these are for future lessons to come. Okay, so here's our second code, the Scanf. This code also belongs to the same library as printf, and it's this one. The function tells the computer that it needs data from the user interactively, but this Scanf. But we won't be getting into this command, this code, in this lesson. It's going to be for the next lesson. Because we need to understand variables before we can understand Scanf. Variables are storages. what does variables store? Variables stores data. It can be collected from the hands of a user. You know, the function we use for this. I said we can use Scanf to gather data from the user interactively. But we want to be able to store data beforehand because we can't write a Scanf function properly yet. So how can we store data? We can, and I mean us programmers, we can put in the code. The data can be in any shape or form. It can be a number, it can be an integer or a decimal, doesn't really matter. It can be a letter such as A or A. These are both different things, as I have mentioned before, because C recognizes the difference between upper and lower case. Okay, so let me show you the usage of a variable. Okay, so variables are very valuable parts of the programming. We will be using them constantly, so you should pay attention to this part very, very carefully. Okay. In math, we simply acknowledge the fact that 4 plus 4 is 8 and 5 plus 2 is 7, right? But in programming, we must use the same phrase, but reversed. As in like this. So let's assume we introduced a variable that can only carry an integer called a. So there is an a, and it can only carry integer, right? We have a way of specifying this thing, and I will tell this later in a second. And I want to tell the computer that this a is a 4 plus 4. And we'll put a semicolon after it. So in programming, this has no meaning. This has no function. My computer already knows that 8 is 4 plus 4, and 5 plus 2 is already 7. So these two had no function, had no purpose, so I just deleted it. But this one does. My computer doesn't know that a is 4 plus 4, aka 8. I assign 4 plus 4 to a. We assign right from left, as you can see here. Okay, before I run this code, I want to explain. We will encounter a tiny bug here. Let's just see. A undeclared. We didn't declare a to our computer. Okay, I will write a tiny part and I will explain it all together. Just trust me. Trust me, we're gonna be okay. We're gonna be okay. Okay, so I compiled it and I still encounter a bug. Okay, let me just explain this printf part. Why did I just write something like %d? What even is this? What is this? So, %d represents variable a. Whatever variable I write after this comma in this context. A is not a constant. A is fluid. A is changeable. A is a changeable variable. I can switch this into 7 and I can switch this to 3 anytime I want. And like this, it can be changeable. And when I want to use another a here, I will have no problem with it. Let me just delete this part for now. the same a that we can use that we use here can be used throughout the whole coding progress. And if we were to change a at some point, it could stick around. If we were to change a at some point in my program, it will automatically change this one along with it. Because sometimes we use in larger programs, we use variables more than once. We use variable a lot more than once. And it won't be wise to change it in every single time manually that we have used in our coding process. It's not practical nor clever. Instead, the computer does this for us, and that is the whole point of a computer actually. It does the task that we are lazy to do it. And it does this thing much faster than us, so it's a win-win situation. So printf function doesn't print %d as is. It has a specific function, a specific usage inside of the printf's quotation marks. It changes a with this, whatever a's values currently. But, of course, there is a but situation to this. We're only starting, so it can seem a bit scary, but I swear to you, it's okay. We're just getting there. We're learning. So we have run this code, and it joyfully gave us an error, and it simply refused to work. So let's run this again. A uncleared. And the reason for that, like I said before, is because we have not declared a to my compiler. The compiler can't register if the variable is an integer or a letter or a decimal or whatever that is. We need to tell our poor computer that this a is a whole number, an integer. And we can define our integer like this. We just put an int before it, and it will understand that this is a integer storage. Let's run this. Errors 0. Now this is happiness. Let's run this. Hello world. Okay, let's delete this line for now. Okay, let's put this one back. Let's put this one back. 8 equals 4 plus 4. This is the outcome that I expected, and this is the outcome that I got. I know it's a bit confusing, and I know we could use these two interactively, but I think it would be more nice to start a brand new project. I open a new page by pressing Ctrl N at the same time, or you can just go here, or as I have shown you before, we can just click these. Okay, let's write down the skeleton again. How do we start? We use libraries. And my main function and my brackets. So I will be starting with an integer called x. So this is my integer. And I want to assign a number 2 to this. By the way, we can assign numbers by operations like I have did here. But we don't have to, we can just assign number directly, like how they are, or we can use operations. So we wrote down it like this. I don't want you to forget semicolons after lines. So I received a confusing error, so I had to manage this. So I opened a brand new page and I copied the same function as is. And we're good to go. I compiled it. There were no errors. I had the weirdest error. It's a bit confusing, so I just had to cut that part and figure that out on my own because it's a little bit more advanced thing. Okay. So where were we? This is the this is the right way to write the code. There were no errors, as you can see. But there's a catch here. It takes a line that we don't need to spend. And by that I mean we can shorten this down. We can shorten these 2 lines into 1. Like this. So these 2 are the equivalent of each other. Since this one is shorter, and for a programmer, shorter is better because shorter is faster. And we want our programs to run faster and more smoothly, right? We don't want a lagging, slow program. So we're gonna go with this one. I want you to remember, shorter is better. So, for some reason, I want people to know that I have a value to this x variable that we use in this code. For some reason. When we run the program without the codes that we can currently see, this code I'm talking about, can the user know what an x is? No. It's hidden in the code. But if I want for my users to know, I want to expose the value of x. It can have many reasons, but we just don't need one. We just want to do this for some personal reasons. There's an x and its value is 2. How can I write this? So there's a way of doing this. And it's just this. It's very normal. But something's not quite right, right? What would happen if I were to change this into 7? Let's see. Uh-oh, there is a tiny bit of unwanted situation in my program, so I need to change this one as well. Problem solved, but is it? Is it really? We would have to change the text within Printf so that it would match the correct version. Right? We have just done this. But what if this x has spread throughout the whole program? Is it wise to change 100 lines for just one tiny variable? Of course not. Of course not. So that's why we use variables and we use this %d thing. Okay. Side note. There are other forms, this percentage thing. By the way, this is called a format specifier. I refused to say its name earlier, but the sooner you learn, the better. This is a format specifier, and there are other forms to this, like %s, %f, %d is definitely one of them, %c, so on and so forth, okay? This is a format specifier, and we use these to replace variables in many situations. And we're going to get into those later in more detailed version. I just wanted to inform you beforehand. So instead of using this non-changeable form, what would happen if I were to just write this? Let's compile it like this and run it. Maybe not. Maybe not. The reason for this thing happen, but I could not see that one coming. I'm sorry, my bad. We need to assign a variable for this to function in a way that I want. X. Okay? So if I were to change this into 1, this would change it. So, like, why is that useful? Why is that useful? Let me just show you. I always do this. So X is 1. What if happens is if I change it back to 7? Oh, it's 7. What if I change it back to 3? Change it to 3. It's 3. Now, no matter how I would change the value of X, I would still receive the number that I want without any concern of changing anything manually in these codes. Okay, so I think I'm going to cut this part right here. Hopefully it wasn't too complicated or anything. I will make more examples if you'd like, but I think you should do it without depending on me or anyone else if that matters. Feel free to watch the lesson again to understand better or try to find other people that teach the same subject. The lesson is going to be filled with more examples, I promise, and I will finish explaining the function Scanf, so no worries on that. I didn't forget. I said it's for the future lesson, it's for the next lesson. So I did that on purpose. If you want to get familiar with the name of function, the reason that I write this. Okay, so stay tuned and be safe until then. I will see you in my next lesson. So for this to happen, I want you to subscribe and ring the bell. So goodbye until then.